Hey guys, the following is a podcast produced by the Georgia Cyber Center at Augusta University. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to have a wild time.
Augusta University presents In the Wild, the podcast for all things Augusta University and everything else. Here's your host, Raysean Ricks.
Welcome you guys to In the Wild. I am Raysean Ricks, your host, and I'm joined with our co-host, Angela.
Hi, everyone.
Like I said, thanks so much for tuning in. We have so much planned for you guys today. In the Wild is a project that I've been dreaming of for the past couple months, and I'm so happy to share this with you all. We have so much planned today, which our first topic, official topic, will be dating while in college. So, Angela, do you have any interesting stories about dating while you've been in college?
Okay, so I do. Currently I'm in a relationship. I'm actually engaged. I'll be getting married in May.
Oh, wow. Congratulations. That's soon.
I know. It's
May
so
what?
soon. May 17th.
That's the day after my birthday.
Oh, my goodness. How crazy. So yeah.
That'll be very easy to remember.
Yeah, for sure. You'll always remember. But before I got engaged with my amazing partner, I was with a really bad guy. And he showed signs of selfishness, and I didn't realize until after the fact. But I ran into somebody when we were in the store, and they were a friend that I went to high school with, and they were currently enrolled at Georgia Southern. And I was talking to them, and they were telling me how great Georgia Southern was, and I was interested at the time. At this time, I was a freshman in college, but at the time, I was interested in Georgia Southern, but now I'm like so glad I stayed home because I love AU.
Thank you for that.
Yes, love AU. So happy, graduating in December.
Whoop-whoop.
But he snapped on me when when the conversation was over and we walked away. I was telling him, I kind of wanted to go to Georgia Southern, do some things there. He totally snapped on me and was making it seem like I was crazy, like I was getting away from him, like this isn't okay, like I won't be able to see you. How am I going to see you? How am I going to do this and that? And I was just like, whoa, this is so much. And we ended up breaking up, thankfully, because I found my person. But my person now, Josh, he would totally be okay with that. He's totally okay with me going to do internships out of state or even go to New York City to do an internship. He would totally be all for it because he trusts me. He knows that I have what's in the best interest for myself and our relationship. He knows that I wouldn't put anything at jeopardy.
That's awesome. I'm so glad that you were able to find your person.
Yeah.
And me, on the other hand, I'm still single, but I'm not upset about it. I'm actually enjoying my singledom. I kind of have a funny dating story, actually, that's not as, I guess, as intense as your situation. But I know for me, I think during college, there was one time in particular where I was kind of catfished. Mm-hmm. So I met this person online, and which in hindsight, I really should have asked for more pictures of you so I can see you and exactly what you look like. But I didn't ask for as many pictures. So I had headless pictures, but I also had pictures in group, not in groups, well, when you're with your friends type of thing.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, okay. So we were supposed to Netflix and chill, and y'all know what that means.
Wow.
And so when I got to their apartment and they opened the door, and they did not look like any of the pictures that I've seen. So I was like, oh.
Oh, no. What'd I get myself into?
And so, I awkwardly, went inside, and they sit down on the sofa because they were watching a movie. And then I literally sat on the opposite side of the sofa. And I was like, how am I going to get myself out of this situation? I do not know who this person is. And so I literally text my best friend and was like, hey, can you call me with an emergency? And she was like, what? And I was like, just call me with an emergency. And I feel like for most friends, you would just do what I asked you to do, But she was being difficult. She was like, why are you asking me to do this? Like, And she's like, you and so always ask me to do this. And I was like, I've never asked you to call me with an emergency before. I hate phone calls. What are you talking about? And so she didn't text back. And so I'm trying to act like I'm watching this movie that I'm not into at all. I don't even remember what it was. And so finally she calls me and I'm like, oh, thank God. And she's like, help me, I'm dying. And I'm like, what? You locked yourself out of the apartment? What? And she's like, help me, I'm dying. And I'm like, okay, I'll leave right now. I'm somewhere, I'm not home, but I'll be there soon. And so literally I just had to lie my way out of such an awkward situation. And so I'm like, yeah, my roommate just locked themselves out of their apartment. So I have to go back home because my roommate were really close and I want to do right by them, blah, blah, blah. And so I literally just like ran out of there and they asked me like, oh, are you coming back? And I'm like, oh, if I have, a chance to come back, I will, but I'm not sure. Blocked as soon as I closed the door, got in my car, prayed and thanking God that I made it out of the situation alive. And I was like, I'm done trying to be dating online because that just is not worth it. It's not worth it.
Shout out to your friend.
Kinda.
Okay, at first it was a bump in the road, but they came through. Because I've done that before. Definitely. Oh, yeah.
Called a friend with an emergency?
Oh, yeah. I've done it for them. I've needed it done for myself. I've been in a lot of situations.
So, yeah, that was luckily the only time I've ever had to do that. I've never asked for it again since. So, yeah, that scarred me, and I will never forget it. But today we have Michelle Reed, who is our Title IX coordinator, to come in and talk to us about Title IX, which is really about gender equality and which involves sex on college campuses. So we have her to help us out with some things. And when we come back, y'all get to hear from her. So thanks for listening, you guys.
Augusta University's Parking and Transportation Services launched an app to track the JAG Express shuttles called Passio Go. Passio Go is a user-friendly app that lets users know where the shuttles are, the names of drivers, and even the capability to set up an alarm for bus stops. The app can be downloaded for free on all Android and iOS devices. Passio Go is active right now, so feel free to download the time-saving app now.
Welcome back, you guys, to In the Wild. And joining us here in the studio is Michelle Reed, who is our Title IX coordinator. Hi, Michelle. How are you today?
I am doing well. How are you?
Thank you
for having me.
So today, Angela and I have some scenarios in Dating 101 that we wanted you to help break down for us, because I know a lot of times students will see these situations on TV, but also play out in their real life, and we think that they could benefit from having someone break these down for them.
Sure, absolutely. I'll anything I can do to help have students understand how some of these situations that they may have seen, how I can help them at the university, or how I can help make a referral, and to clarify anything that they have questions about.
And before we dive in, could you explain to our listeners what exactly Title IX is?
Absolutely. So Title IX is a federal and state law, and it applies to gender equity. So if there is an allegation of gender bias or discrimination based on sex, sexual orientation, LGBTQ, or if there are situations that a student should experience related to sexual harassment, non-consensual touching, dating violence, domestic violence, and stalking, as well as sexual exploitation. All of those areas are the areas that are covered by Title IX. And it also, oftentimes people think Title IX is just for women. One of the myths out there is that, and so I just want to make sure that students understand this is not a policy for women only. Oftentimes guys come to me just as much as a woman would. And the other thing I want to make sure students and listeners understand is that Title IX is also involving an employee. So if there is a student, not only is it a protection for students, but it's also if an employee is being sexually harassed or something along that line by a student, this is also a policy that protects an employee if a student are doing these things as well.
Oh, wow. So let's get started with some of these TV shows. Angela, why don't you get us started?
Hi, everyone. So the first example we have is You from Netflix. So Joe has a major crush on Beck. He begins to search for her on social media to learn more about her. Then he decides to search for her in person. When they are together and Beck leaves the room, he always checks her phone and goes through her things. What do you make of Joe's behavior?
Okay, so what this points to here is potentially stalking or sexual harassment. And, you know, oftentimes students or just in general, people don't understand what stalking is, or if, in this scenario here, someone going through your personal belongings or trying to check up on you, or there's a huge difference between somebody who is interested in someone and checks on a social media site or something like that, or periodically checks in if they suspect something is going on with someone that they're involved with, to somebody whose intention is to harm, or if somebody has said, you know, I don't want to date you anymore, or I don't want to talk to you anymore, or something like that. So in this case, it looks like this person is trying to check up on the person, and you know, based on what you've described, I guess I would say I would need to know more information in terms of like what other things are going on in this
so
relationship.
Much more goes on with Joe and Beck.
Absolutely, because you know, the threshold is, does the person, so does Beck feel threatened by the behavior? Mm-hmm. So often that's really what is at hand here at play. Like if some people are okay with somebody grabbing their phone or checking their information, while other people, you know, and again, I would need to know more from Beck, like, is she okay with that?
More of the context, more of the motives behind Joe. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like is, you know, has there been something that's happened in the past between them? Mm-hmm. Has there been something that's created distrust? Has there, or is it controlling behavior? So again, that is the difference, is Joe being controlling and trying to tell her who and what she should, you know, wear, or who she should be with, or you know, all of those kinds of things, or is it out of, or is it coming from a different place? Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of different factors with these things, and it's case by case scenario. If this very same thing came forward, all the questions that I'm asking right now would be the questions I would ask of Beck if she came to see me.
For sure.
In the office. Because if she's uncomfortable and she's articulated I'm uncomfortable and don't do that, then all bets are off. Like, you know, it's a problem.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. Okay, so what about another show on Freeform? It's called Grownish. So Sky and Doug have been together for a few months, and Sky and her sister are student athletes, and from time to time they post pictures of themselves in athletic wear on Instagram, so that way they can gain sponsorships and money. And Doug, her boyfriend, gets super upset and demands that she deletes those posts because they are too revealing. So what do you think about this dynamic, and what do you think Sky should do?
So Sky, you know, is doing these things because she's trying to promote herself, and she's trying to possibly gain, you know, monetary, you know, benefits from, you know, what she's doing as an athlete. And in this case, the way I'm hearing this description is that there is a level of control, where he's telling her, don't wear what you're wearing. And to me, that is a red flag if this was a situation that came forward here, because no one should be told what they can and can't wear by another person. And so that would lend itself potentially to a dating violence issue or incident or report. And I would definitely, is this a one-time shot deal like for Sky, or are there other things that have come forward? And are there other ways that he's trying to tell her, what she should and shouldn't do, which again is that intimidation, power over, control over somebody, and that would be, potentially dating violence in terms of Title IX.
So spoiler alert for those who haven't watched this, but Sky does actually break up with him because of this, she kind of felt your same sentiment of like, yeah, I'm going to do this for me and my sister, and if you can't get with it, then you can't come with us.
Exactly. And, I always say it doesn't matter what somebody wears. It's about how they conduct themselves. And just because someone wears a certain height of skirt or short or type of top that might be revealing, if the person is comfortable in that, then they should feel free to do that, and somebody shouldn't dictate that.
Thank you.
Yes.
I agree.
I agree
Very much
too.
so.
Yep.
So another example is going to be Riverdale. Riverdale is one of my favorites. It's a high school drama. So Cheryl gets set up with Nick, who is from out of town. When they meet again at an event, Nick slips something into her drink. Soon after, she asks him to leave as she is not feeling well. He takes her back to his hotel. As he gets ready to take advantage of her, her friends break in and take her home. What can Title IX do to help Cheryl after this?
Okay, so this is a very serious, situation where someone is, being drugged to the point of being incapacitated. And these things do happen on college campuses and in life in general. And so I would immediately, if she came forward or if a friend of hers came forward, I would encourage her to go to the hospital and actually, and it doesn't indicate, here whether or not anything did happen. It may not have at this point, but nonetheless, it might be good to go to the hospital. So I would encourage her to go to the hospital and to get a tox exam. And basically, that toxology exam, and I know I'm not saying that correct right now, would be able to indicate whether or not what drugs were given to her or slipped to her. And that would be really important information to have on record. And then at that point, they could also check to see if maybe before the friends arrived, maybe there was things that did go on. Maybe it wasn't full, clothes off or anything like that. But did Nick touch her, her breasts, her body parts before the friends arrived? And so they'd be able to examine her for that as well through a forensic exam.
That's important. Many people don't know about those things, and acting on those things right when that happens is very important and smart.
Very, very important. And many people don't know, too, that for the forensic exam, as an example, to check over the body and collect DNA, and even if it is a touching on the breast, let's say, people think that, well, I only go to the hospital if it's a full
like penetration?
Correct, yes. But that is not true. Like, say somebody is strangled, or say somebody is choked out, let's say, or choked and didn't consent to that, or say somebody didn't consent to touching the breast area. They can swab that area as well, and a lot of people don't know that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be full penetration. And so these are really important things. And one other point to make is that it has to be done within 5 days.
Oh, wow.
And that's important because the DNA, it only lives for so long. But if a student or somebody isn't sure if they want to pursue charges, just collecting it is key. And in the state of Georgia, I believe they keep the DNA and the results of a forensic for up to 2 years.
Oh, okay.
Great.
Okay, so we have one last scenario for you.
Okay.
And it comes from 13 Reasons Why from Netflix.
Okay.
Hannah goes to one of Bryce's infamous house parties. After everyone has left, Hannah and Bryce are left in the hot tub. She begins to leave, but Bryce stops her and begs her to stay. Bryce is drunk, and he begins complimenting her. He forces her to have sex with him. She doesn't say no or tries to stop him. So I have two questions for you. One, does that count as rape? And is Hannah responsible because she didn't tell Bryce to stop?
Okay, so this is again a scenario that we see as Title IX coordinators across our campuses, and this is an issue that we have to address and deal with each year. So if this was a scenario that came forward, it based on what you just described here, I would be looking at, as a Title IX coordinator, what we call non-consensual sex or non-consensual contact. And so, in other words, rape. So yes, to answer your question, it would be looked into and investigated as that. And again, there's a lot of factors that play into that. It's described here that he was intoxicated. So was she intoxicated would be the next question as a Title IX coordinator. And if so, should Bryce have known whether or not she had the capacity to give consent? So that's the underlying question that we're always asking, and how a determination would actually be made. So in other words, if Bryce was to be found responsible, an investigation would have to say whether or not he should have known she had the ability to consent or not. So if he was intoxicated, that's a whole other layer to that. And so you also asked here, is Hannah responsible for not telling Bryce to stop? So as this is played out, it looks like she didn't say no, and she didn't, push, shove, fight away, things like that. I would always say, and I say this to each and every group I meet with or students I meet with one-on-one, that silence does not equal yes. So just because she didn't say no or fight herself away from him, it doesn't mean he gained consent.
Because I think a lot of times young men have the impression of, oh, I have to be like aggressive because that's what women like. So I think it's really important that for young men to be especially cognizant of how much they drink too, because drinking does alter your perception of things. So yeah, she may not be verbally fighting her or saying no or fighting herself off, but if you're drunk and you're not as perceptive as you are, so you may not be able to notice all of her nonverbal cues of, I don't want this contact.
Absolutely. And you hit a great point. Whenever I have the opportunity to talk to somebody, we need to make sure, yes, that if alcohol is involved, it's better to err on the side of caution and just to wait. And because you wouldn't want to be accused of something that you thought you had approval or you thought the person was consenting. But whenever alcohol is involved, it perceptions and realities and what one person thinks they heard or what one person thinks they got clarity on, the other person walks away saying, no one asked me, or I didn't want to do that. So, and that is often the case with relationships and with parties and with people that are having a good time. Is there's a lot at stake. There are careers, there are whether or not a student is eligible to graduate, and so just err on the side. If I was talking to you right now and giving you advice, I would say, don't place yourself in jeopardy of ever having anyone ever think that something happened and that they didn't approve of it.
Gotcha.
I feel like the nonverbal cues are important here.
Yes.
Mostly you're always taught about the verbal cues, but you're like, people don't understand verbal cues and the nonverbal cues are not adding up. It shouldn't happen.
Agreed. So in other words, like, and that's a really good point. So if even if a guy or a girl says, I'm not ready, or not right now, or the person isn't genuinely engaged in the kissing, the hugging, the touching, the various things, be sure for yourself and ask.
Exactly.
Are you okay with, me touching you here? Are you okay with me? Are you okay with doing this? Are you okay? Just asking. And, we have this thing that we say, consent is sexy. Consent is sexy. And you want to know that if you're having sex with someone, that they're into it.
Exactly. You want to make sure they want to be there just as much as you want to be there.
And I always say it's you want to enjoy it, right? And you want to have a good time, and you want to make sure that person is having a good time and enjoying it. And just, again, it's a protection for students just to make sure that there is no miscommunication whatsoever.
Well, thank you so much, Michelle, for joining us today and enlightening us on some really serious and heavy topics. How can students reach out to you if they feel like some of these scenarios or Title IX may apply to them?
Okay, well, thank you for having me today. I really appreciate it. And students and or anybody can reach out to me by calling 706-721-0901. And they can also reach me by emailing. And my email address is micreed@augusta.edu. So mccreed@augusta.edu. And my office will also be located as of this Thursday in the Annex 1 building, which is on 15th Street. So a student could walk in there as well.
All right. Awesome. Thanks so much, Michelle.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks for listening to In the Wild. If you like what you heard, then give us a nice rating and review this podcast on whatever you use to listen to your podcast. To keep our conversations going, follow In the Wild on Instagram @InTheWildPod and Augusta University on all our social media platforms. Don't forget to follow me, your host, Raysean Ricks, @Raysean Ricks, to send me questions you want to be answered on the show. Tune in for new episodes every week, class in session, because we don't want you to miss a single thing happening on campus. You can also find more news stories at jaguar.augusta.edu. Until then, I'll see y'all next time. Stay wild out there, guys.
Hey, you guys. So I wanted to tell y'all about an app I've been using on campus. Rave Guardian is a widely used app across universities to improve safety. The app features a safety timer, which is a virtual escort on campus, the ability to submit anonymous tips if something suspicious is happening, direct two-way communication with public safety officers, and even one-click emergency dial. The app offers so much more, but I don't want to keep you here all day. Help is always one click away with the Rave Guard app. Download the app and let us know what you think.